What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And the Flyers, they just wrapped up their scrimmage, their black versus orange, well, their white versus orange, actually. And the white team, they defeated them 4-2. And it was a very, I would say, entertaining game. The Flyers won. Was really expecting the Flyers to pull this one out, but sadly, the Flyers weren't able to do it. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Christopher Maher. He's the co-host of the Flyer Up podcast, and he is also the host of Flyers Fan Mania 93 on YouTube. Chris, thank you for joining me. And Chris, did you think the Flyers were going to pull this one out? What are your thoughts on the Flyers as well?
Man, that was a close game. I was kind of hoping they'd just come in, get pucks deep, shots on net. But no, just all jokes aside, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, as always. And again, I think overall I thought it was just a solid game from everybody. To be honest, I feel like both guys played well. Kind of saw some hints of some lines you'll probably see opening night versus Pittsburgh. But overall, I feel like for the most part it was a good game. Had some pretty good pace from the start. I thought the goaltenders were well. The 3-on-3 overtime was cool. Same with the shootout. But again, I just thought it was a really good game all around.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you right there. And just looking at a lot of things that stood out to me, there are a lot of players that stand out. The first line of Drew, Hayes, and Farabee, Patrick, JVR, Voracek, even Couturier, Konechny, and Lindblom. And just Carter Hart stood out. It was just a lot of overall things. Even Brian Elliott stood out. He had a really good game today. There were just a lot of things that were, I would say, really good in this game. Kevin Hayes didn't lose his scoring touch from last year's playoffs. Nolan Patrick, it seems like it's been forever since he stepped on the ice for live game action and he potted himself a goal. And it's just in good old Flyers fashion, they would like to enjoy every fan with a shootout, so they decided to go to a shootout, and it went 9 rounds. So it was a overall great Flyers day, I guess you could say it right there. And it's just looking at some players, Chris, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, what are the players that stood out to you? What are the lines? I want to hear your thoughts.
So I had 3 players that I had when I did my video. I had 3 guys that stood out to me. My top 3 for the game were Hayes, Patrick, and Elliott in that order. Um, it's obviously probably obvious, but like again, I thought all those guys played very well. Moose saw a lot of pucks. As you talked about with Patrick, he moved the puck well. He just looked flying through the neutral zone, very flashy early on. And Hayes obviously he made his shots count. He had 2 goals, and he played great on that line. But I think all 3 of the lines were very good. Actually, when I say all 3 of the lines, I mean all 3 of those lines where you kind of are already pretty much thinking that they're going to be the NHL lines. You have, obviously, you mentioned it before, you have Hayes with Giroux and Farabee, and then you have Coots with Lindblom and Konechny. That final line there of Patrick with Voracek and JVR. I thought all of them cycled the puck well. They had their chances. They generated chances. We saw them, all those players kind of mixed in with the power play at times. There was 2 power plays in this game, 1 for each team, and then there was a penalty shot also for Wyatt Wiley. But overall, I thought all the lines played good. As I said before, I mean the game had a good pace. You kind of had Orange kind of dominating the first at times throughout that first period, and then you pretty much had just a really just onslaught of Team White with just so many chances, from the end of that period. It seemed like for the most part for Orange, they had their chances in the first period, and when they did, they made them count. They went up 1-0 and then 2-0. A couple really nice passing plays from that Hayes line. And overall, I feel like, White was able to settle in. And even in the first period when it looked like they were still down 2-0, they still, had them more shots at the end of the period, double the shots, or 12-6. When they shot the puck, they had a lot of guys shoot from the point. They were generating point shots. And I think for the most part, they were really doing a great job with the cycling. As you said, they kind of did a lot of that more in the second period. They ended up getting a goal from Ollie Bell. And then, they kind of continued throughout the game. They ended up, getting more chances and things like that. And, and they had a power play late in the first period too. So overall, I thought it was a good game from all the lines. And I think, as I said, I thought the game had a really good pace throughout.
Yeah, just looking at, I would say, one of the lines, Nolan Patrick, James Van Riemsdyk, Jake Voracek, those guys are flying out there the entire game. And like I said earlier, Nolan Patrick, he hasn't stepped on the ice for live game action in over a year and a half, it feels like at this point. It feels like it's been 10 years, honestly, with everything that's been going on around in the world. But he looked good. He looked really good. And Chris, you brought up that, I think, in a couple of podcasts ago, too, and even many podcasts before that, during his scrimmages that he played out in Winnipeg, where he looked very flashy and he looked really good. And do you think he showed that type of potential that he had in those scrimmages in this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's different to kind of compare it to that. As now that I think about that, like it's kind of hard to compare it to that because again, it's long. It's a long time ago. He's playing against a different competition. This is his teammates, NHL players, and now this is those scrimmages were a handful of times a week, and it was against young NHL prospects and players. So, he looked very good though. I mean, I will say, I mean, he was easily the best player on the ice in Winnipeg. That was pretty, clear cut and obvious before the games would even start. Um, Kind of just looking at it on paper, but I mean, overall, I thought Patrick just controlled what he could control. He didn't necessarily have to play in this big style. He played a certain way. He played good with his line mates in Voracek and JVR. He cycled well with them. I think that line meshes well because JVR, who's still I think very solid overall in really all three of the zones at times. He makes very good plays in the defensive end, and I think he really is can help Patrick and Voracek, two guys that can move the puck. They're quick in the neutral zone, so I think overall I think that line meshed well. As for Patrick, he really dominated for at times during the game. As I said really from the start, I mean that line started the opening shift 14 white, and it looked like they really dominated throughout. So overall, they had a good start. They kind of continued. They were shooting. They were getting chances early and often. You can say the same thing about the Hayes line with Drew and Farabee also when they had the two goals also. So overall, I thought it was a good game from Patrick. And as I said, he was easily my second star for tonight's game.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. And just looking at some other players, you got Nicholas Aube-Kubel getting the first goal for the white team with an absolute snipe past Brian Elliott. And when the game eventually shifted into the 3-on-3 with the final 5 minutes in that third period, there were some moments that stood out. You got Lawton cashing in off of a turnover from Mark Friedman. He gets it on the breakaway. And like I tell Chris, literally every time, Lawton is the guy that always gets the breakaways, and he scores on this one. But then you also get another breakaway chance after a turnover by Travis Konechny in the offensive zone. It springs a breakaway for James Van Riemsdyk. He goes 5-hole through Varinelli. That makes it a 4-2 score for the white team. And I guess that's where you can say it ends in regulation, as the white team would beat the orange team 4-2. But then the Flyers, they go on to the shootouts. And as I said during watching this game, I was like, okay, it looks like the Flyers didn't lose their touch and not being able to score in the shootout because we go 9 rounds. It takes a clap bomb from Michael Raffle in the ninth round, who was the eighth team shooter at that time, to finally end the shootout. And honestly, both goalies played really well. Brian Elliott had two great saves, one on Voracek, one on Scott Lawton, where Lawton had a wide open net, and Moose had just got the paddle on it somehow. I have no idea how that happened. It was just it was one of those nights, I guess. Definitely one of those nights. And just looking at this team right now, some things that also stand out. The power play lines, especially for the Orange team. That's something you can definitely see going into the regular season. You
Yeah,
had
right.
Drew on the left side, Provorov on the point, Hayes on the right side, sometimes the slot. Same thing you could say with Couturier. And then you would have Konechny netmouth, mainly where he's going to deflect shots, get in the goalie's face, and fight for those rebounds, more like where you would say Danny Briere was.
Right.
So that could be a nice power play setup going into the regular season. I'm not going to lie right there. Definitely something nice right there. And Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as for the white power play early in the first period, kind of just to break it down, they had their chances. It was the Patrick line with JVR and Voracek, and then you had Frost and Gustafson. They had a couple chances. They moved the puck well. Frost had a nice chance on a play in front, kind of a scramble play. Patrick sent it over to him. Elliott made a nice pad save. But overall, I thought they got into the zone well. They looked good. Jake was in his normal spot. Gustafson was a quarterback. Had Patrick in the slot. JVR really in his office down low. And then you had Frost really on the that left wing kind of half wall there. So overall, I thought that was a pretty good power play. But the orange there in I believe it was the third period they had the power play. It might have been late in the second, but they really moved the puck well. Very crisp puck movement throughout. You had Drew in his normal spot. Obviously, you said Provorov at the point, Hayes in the slot, Coots usually in Voracek spot. And then they had TK, as you said before, like kind of side of the net, in front of the net, kind of where he played last year, where when the Flyers kind of switched to that like double screening deflection play in front, where they had JVR and Konechny. They scored a couple goals like that. I know the one goal against the Blues last year, Konechny had scored from being in that slot. So they had kind of had some success, and obviously Konechny's still working on it. He did say that in the media conferences a few days ago. Camp 2, he's still working on that spot, but he is getting used to it. So overall, I thought the power plays were good. As I said, the Orange they really moved the puck well. They had a few chances. It was really one, two, maybe three passes, and then they were really shooting. But it was nothing where it was kind of just like waiting way too long. They couldn't get set up in the playoffs. You know what I mean? It was just like completely different. They were really had a different mindset. They were getting pucks quick to the net, and they were trying to shoot as much as possible. I think they did a really good job of that for both units.
Yeah, and just now, like going after this game, and then you're looking at some of the other things. This is most likely, I would assume this is the last day of training camp, and then you're gonna have the off day tomorrow, and then you're gonna have just regular old practice on Tuesday as you prepare for Wednesday's home opener against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And just looking at the lines right now, the defensive pairings, I would say right now, I guess that's what's gonna look like for your opening day roster. You have Provorov and Braun most likely, I would say, as the top pairing. Maybe that can change. And because throughout training camp, they really kept Sanheim and Myers together. So I think they're just pushing for that second pairing to be Sanheim and Myers. Then I would assume it would be Haig and Gustafson on that bottom pairing. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
switch Braun and Gustafson. You just don't know because
Yeah,
Provorov is really just paired
it's
with a
really
bunch of
interesting.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because Provorov hasn't played with Myers in all of camp. He played with Ghost, he played with Freeman, and he played with Braun. That was it. Those were the three guys he played with the whole time. So, he played with Ghost twice, and Ghost the other day was unable to participate. Obviously, we don't know the situation, whether if it's anything COVID related or if it's injury or whatnot. And then, I think for the most part, they only had five injuries. It was Wade Allison, who I believe, again, that could be COVID or injury, whatever. But overall, I feel like, for the most part, I think Provorov is most likely going to, I would assume, probably. Um, I would like to see him play with Braun. I think if that's what they're comfortable with, if that's what they're set with, and obviously they have a say in it too. Obviously they talk to the players and stuff. So I think for the most part, I think it makes sense if they're comfortable. They play with they started the season before with them as remember last year. Provorov played with Braun for the first 5 or 6 games of the season. It didn't really work out too well. Obviously, he ended up getting switched up, but it could be the same this year. Maybe it's a different setup and things like that. One thing that Braun had mentioned, which obviously is it's pretty obvious, but um, he had mentioned that it's different this year coming into it with the defense because they had to kind of adjust to the whole new AV system and with Mike Yo and everything. So now it's different because they're in that they're trying to think of the word and I can't. They're really they understand the system now, and I think for the most part you have a lot of guys coming in. Obviously, the loss of Niskanen is different. And again, you're going to see more guys get more time and things like that. Myers elevated role, Sanheim elevated role, things like that. So I think for the most part, I think the D could change if Gostisbehere's situation isn't as bad and he's able to play. Because I personally think if he wasn't hurt, he would have played with Provorov tonight. And I think they might have had to done a little bit of switch with Braun. Maybe some guys wouldn't have played. I don't really know. But I think for the most part, you'll most likely see Provorov with Braun. I think you'll see Sanheim with Myers. And I think what you said too, I think you'll see Hag with Gustafsson for that bottom pairing.
Yeah, and just now, like going into that COVID situation, there's like, there's been a little bit of a scary situation going on around the NHL. We know with the Dallas Stars, they've had quite a few amount of players and coaches testing positive for COVID, and they're not going to be able to play their first game until after the 19th of January. Columbus, they're dealing with a little bit of a situation right here, and in Pittsburgh, they even also have a scare where they had to close their practice facility just due to possible contamination. And they were talking about that during the broadcast today, during the game and just that they were planning to do their scrimmage today. It sounded like they was still going to be underway. So hopefully there's nothing really too bad going on with Pittsburgh to where they have to postpone the home opener.
Yeah.
So we
And
just got to wait and see at this point.
yeah, kind of just to go off that too. I know they said they did shut it down, but they reopened because there was no positives. They had no positive tests. So pretty good news. And it was a good update overall. I believe it was actually a false positive, which was what might have been the case. But don't quote me on that. So I think overall, I think it's tough with Dallas because their whole situation where they had the six players and then the two staff members too. So it's tough because now their games against Florida, which I believe who they were supposed to open up against, they've been pushed back. Pushed back, I should say, rescheduled. And for the most part, they're not starting until January 19th now. That's the earliest I believe that they can start, or that's the date that they're looking to start at, I guess. So
Yeah, I think they have to play after January 19th, or
okay,
it's like on it or after it, something like
okay,
that.
okay. Yeah, so I think overall, I think it makes sense for teams to be taking a precautionary. I think it's tough because there's so much going on right now, and it's still like that winter season because you obviously have like the cold and flu season too, which doesn't necessarily help. And obviously everybody's getting back together again and everything. So it's tough because this is going to happen. We knew what would happen. We just got to hope that it doesn't happen a lot. And if it does, it's, short. And like if it's Dallas, for example, let's hope this doesn't happen again with them. They're able to continuously play, don't have as many pushbacks. But, you know, I really think that there might be time when there might be a stoppage or whatever with some teams because it could get so bad, but I don't think it should be that much of a problem. I think overall, I think the teams are going to be able to be okay. I think we're going to have a hockey season still.
Yeah, I believe you on that. I feel like regardless, there's going to be a hockey season. We're seeing it around all sports right now. We're seeing it with the NBA, with the Philadelphia 76ers right now. They're playing with seven, 8 guys on their active roster, and the NBA is still making them play games. Even though they should be postponing them, they're still making them play. There's a situation going on with the Miami Heat as well, where they had to postpone their game against the Boston Celtics. So leagues are going through this. The NFL, they have quite a few share of their COVID situations. I think there's still some teams that are dealing with it. I think Cleveland, in their game today against Pittsburgh, some coaches had to stay out because they had tested positive for COVID. So all these leagues are experiencing this. So it's not like it's just not going to happen. The
Right.
teams are playing in their home cities. They're going living at home with their families. There's going to be situations where something happens, and that's just the way it's going to be right now. It's going to be a scary process, and they're gonna have to find a way to deal with it. That's just the way the season is going to go around. So just Chris, just now to wrap up this video now, just going into the home opener against the
Mhm.
Pittsburgh Penguins. Just what are your hopes right here? What are your hopes?
A win. I hope the team in orange wins.
The team in orange wins.
Yeah. No,
I
no.
mean, I mean that's a
In all seriousness, I'm excited to see the roster. I am. I'm very excited for opening night. It's gonna be a great game. Again, it kicks off the NHL season, so that's even cooler. I think it's gonna be a great game. I do. I hope the Flyers win. I think they can come out and win. Got to bring that intensity. They have to be ready from the puck drop because again, we've talked about it before. There really is no much room for error. Where in a regular season, 82 games, you'd have, February and March if you're down to kind of come back and kind of pick yourself back up like we've seen the Flyers do in recent years. It's a different team now. It's a different era. Everything has changed. The Flyers, they said it on the broadcast tonight. They looked at themselves last year to get into the playoffs, and now they look at themselves as Stanley Cup contenders. We got to come in and let's show them that we can be Stanley Cup contenders. So I think for the most part, you have to come in, you have to play your ass off, and I think for the most part, I think you have to be an effing flyer, and I think that's kind of what I know. It sounds cliche and everything, but AV's right when he says that. You have to come in and you have to work. So I think AV's going to be a challenging coach this year, and I think that's a good thing because there's a lot of guys on this team that, he brought it up the other day with Voracek. He's a guy who's been here for forever, and he's only has 2 playoff round wins. So, and it's not just him. So I think overall they could come in, buckle down, and start off on the right foot here and get a win against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's a really good motivation set right there. It's going to be a very exciting time, definitely heading into Wednesday. So, Chris, to wrap it up, have any plugs that you want to put in here for yourself?
Yeah, so if you want to check me out on YouTube, it's at FlyerSimmy or it's just FlyerSimmy93. My Instagram is at FlyerSimmy93. My Twitter is _ Chris Maher with a capital C. And again, I am on the podcast with this schmuck. No, I'm kidding. Amadeo, again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And again, I think we will be doing a podcast soon these next few days talking about, the scrimmage and the season and all that stuff. So overall, stay tuned with that. And again, Amadeo, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Definitely, you're always the one schmuck that's always welcome onto this TTP Sports. So thank you for joining. And yes, like as Chris said, don't forget we're definitely going to get a podcast in to have our season preview in the next few days or so. I think we're looking at Tuesday right now, so stay tuned for that. So what we want to hear your thoughts in the comment section right here. What were your thoughts on the Flyers scrimmage? What are your thoughts on going into the season? So don't forget to leave your comments down in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines, which is the Flyer podcast is a part of right now. Their links will be in the description below. Also, with the Flyer Up podcast, don't forget to check out their merchandise website. That link will be in the description below. I'll put Chris's information for his channel, his Instagram, down in the description below. Don't forget to check out that. Thank you for tuning into this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to Chris's as well. And we will see you next time.